Hello, and this is Lillian coming to you with Early Lenses. Early Lenses is when I come to you, my perspective on things, wearing my own lenses. So some of it you find, you know, agreeable to you, and some of it will be like, what's she talking about? But again, like I said up front, this is Early Lenses. It's just how I see things. I wear many hats in my life, and today I'm wearing my public health hat. So I'm a public health professional, and what we do in public health, I give you the definition from the American Public Health Association, says that public health promotes and protects the health of people and the communities where they live, learn, work, and play. And so basically what we do is we don't wait until the medical professionals and wait for you to come and present and say this is what's wrong with me. We sort of look at what's going on where you are, and we do studies. Our epidemiologists conduct studies by statisticians, analyze the data that comes in, and we say based on what we're seeing, this is what's happening, this is what's causing this, and this is what's likely to happen, and so this is how we intervene. And that's in a nutshell. That's a very brief definition, but that's in a nutshell is what we do as public health professionals. One of the issues that I work on is domestic violence. And today I wanted to look some more. I talked about it the last time, but I wanted to look some more at the issue of blaming the victim. In domestic violence, there are two ways in which victims are blamed. On the one hand, people say it's your fault that this is happening to you. So it's something that you're doing. And it's either you're not behaving right, or you're behaving aggressive, or you're doing something, but it's your fault. You're doing something, and that's why this is happening to you. The other side of blaming the victim in domestic violence is also when you don't leave. People ask the question, why doesn't he leave? Why doesn't she leave? Oh, and by the way, I subscribe to the fact that domestic violence happens to both male and female. We have both male and female victims, and we have both male and female perpetrators. So I'm going to try and be neutral in my analysis as I talk. However, a lot of my work has been with female victims who have suffered violence at the hands of male abusers. So when I get into examples, I might begin to say he and she, but otherwise I'm going to be very general as I talk. And that's just to let you know that I do recognize that both male and female are victims, and male and females are abusers. So back to what I was saying about blaming the victim and saying it's something that the person has done. In the field of domestic violence, we clearly know that abuse is all about power and control, and research supports the fact that it's a choice that people make. An abuser makes a choice to be abusive. True, there are some things that might make you prone to being abusive. So we talk about trying to work with people at the elementary school level, educating people about how to handle emotions, how to handle stress, and things like that. We talk about bullying and sort of all of those things, because when you're exposed to these things, you may be more inclined to be abusive in your behavior. But abuse is not a resultant behavior. What do I mean by abuse is not a resultant behavior? Abuse doesn't result because of something that happens. Abuse happens when you make a choice to be abusive. And why do we say that in the field? Studies have shown time and time again. You see somebody says, oh, it's because he drinks, that's why he's abusive. But when we look closely at the person who drinks and is abusing their partner, we find that the person drinks but is able to function well at work, or is able to function well with other people. So if your drinking is really what is causing you to be abusive, then you should be abusive at all times to all people, and not just to this your partner that you feel they need to oppress. If this is your partner's behavior that is making you to be abusive, then everybody should be responding to your partner the same way, or you should be responding to everybody who gets on your nerve the same way. So how come your boss gets on your nerve at work and you're able to control your reaction to your boss, but you come home and your partner gets on your nerve, and the only response you can give to that is to be violent? That is really not something that is resulting from all of these excuses, abuse, alcohol, and all of those. They are not what we call a necessary and sufficient condition. They can make things worse, but you still have the right to choose to be abusive or to choose to respond in a different way. You can still drink and not be abusive. You can still have a drug problem and not be abusive. And we do have people who have all of those things. And we also have people who are abusers who do not drink. We also have people who are in a relationship with very timid people who do absolutely nothing, who are still abusive. So we, in the practice in the field, do not subscribe to the fact that it's somebody's behavior, somebody's character that is making them abusive. It's a choice that you make, and you make that choice primarily because you're trying to control your partner. You want to control your partner. You want your partner to live in fear of you. You want to be able to say to your partner, jump, and then the only response you want to hear is, how high should I jump? And that is not what a human being is supposed to do. That's why we also say that domestic violence is a social justice and a human rights issue. Because if you're thinking about your partner as a human being who is entitled to certain privileges for being a person, then you will not subscribe to abusive practices because you're undermining that person's humanity. That on the one side is blaming the victim and saying you made me do it, or excusing your behavior and saying alcohol made me do it, unemployment made me do it, my mood swings made me do it, because you do not behave this way to everybody. That doesn't work. The other side of blaming the victim is also when we say, why doesn't he leave? Why doesn't she leave? And that is where I'm going to give a public health approach to how these things work. Now, for a very long time, public health, we used to use individual behavioral changes. We want an individual to modify their behavior, and we work exclusively with the individual. Public health has come a long way since that time, and we realize that we cannot just exclusively place the responsibility for a behavioral change on a person without changing the environment in which the person lives in, or change some certain things about the individual. All of that shifting happened in public health when we started to look closely at what we call social determinants of health. And social determinants of health looks at things like employment, income, education, and sometimes housing, social factors that affect an individual. And we say that these social factors influence how an individual will behave regardless of what you're telling them. The example I'd like to talk about today, for instance, is tobacco. In the 1940s, 1950s, the relationship between smoking and lung cancer became well established. And when that relationship became established, what did we do? We didn't just say to people, aha, here it is. You're getting lung cancer and you're dying because you smoke, so don't smoke. And that's it. And we've done our job and we've gone back into our offices. Since the connection between smoking and lung cancer has been made, these are some of the efforts that have gone into making sure that we put people in an environment where they are less likely to smoke, more likely to stop smoking. So for one, we have worked with the tobacco industry. The tobacco industry operates under such regulations, it's unbelievable. If you're a smoker, if you're not a smoker, you've seen those tobacco smoking cigarette ads. You've seen those cigarette ads that say to you, one, and the Surgeon General warns that tobacco smoking is dangerous for your health. You have to put that on your product. You have to put that when you're advertising on TV, when you're advertising in print media. Because we realize that it's not enough to say to a person, smoking is dangerous for your health. We're making the tobacco industry advertise the fact that smoking is dangerous for your health. Beyond that, there's also restrictions on where tobacco industry can advertise their cigarettes and on what time they can advertise it, for instance, on TV. You cannot advertise tobacco smoking during times where kids are supposed to be watching TV. You cannot place your adverts within certain distance and with proximity to schools and to campus. You cannot promote your events. You cannot sponsor events on campus in certain places. Just regulations to make it difficult for you to expose your product to people who can smoke. Beyond working with the tobacco industry, we've also worked with government. And so government has policies in place. You have to be a certain age to be able to buy tobacco. There are also taxes on tobacco that makes it very difficult for you. Well, not necessarily very difficult, but makes cigarettes an expensive product. And so we're hoping that in making it an expensive product, people are less likely to want to buy cigarettes. All of this is still going to boil down to the individual to choose, but we're making it difficult for the individual to be able to choose to smoke. Beyond that, we have gone to smoking cessation programs. So you have a lot of communities that offer smoking cessation programs. If you want to stop smoking, there are a lot of places to help support you to get into a smoking cessation program, work you through the process and make it easy for you to stop smoking. And we've done with communities, housing units. Do you know that there are some housing communities where smoking is banned? I'm not saying that you cannot smoke in your house, you cannot smoke in your complex. It is banned. There's some public housing units where smoking is banned. In the public housing unit, you cannot smoke anywhere on the grounds, not even if it's in your bedroom. As long as in those complexes, you cannot smoke. We have smoke-free campuses. I remember when I was working at Community Health Action, and when we started to implement a smoking ban, people used to be able to go downstairs, just go outside the office, but go downstairs to smoke. But when we saw that not enough people had stopped smoking, the ban was extended, and you can't smoke on that block. So you can't go downstairs to smoke. You have to go downstairs and go around the block to smoke. That was also a policy when I was working at N Street Village. You have to go round the block to smoke. And with all of this, we make it still your choice to decide to smoke, but we're sort of making it difficult for you to embrace smoking and making it, and all of those things also had smoking cessation programs, by the way. So it's not like we're saying you can't smoke and then we're leaving people on their own. We're also providing the support to help them stop smoking. What am I saying? I'm saying that in the same way that we've done all of this so that it can be easier for somebody to stop smoking or not start smoking. You cannot say to somebody who's in a domestic violence situation that, oh, because you're being abused, you just ought to leave. And because you have not left, that is your responsibility. There are social determinants of health that make people staying in abusive relationships. So we know that, for instance, sometimes people stay in abusive relationships because they do not find the support or they cannot support themselves when they leave. So what policies do we have in place? How supportive is the employment environment? Is the remuneration environment for people? And when we look at people who are not earning so much money or who don't have the opportunity to get employed, then they're more likely to stay in an abusive relationship. And it's not just get up and go, but it's like get up and go where? And we also look at the environment that people are living in. If you get up and go and you're going to be stigmatized, you can't go out into the community because people are looking at you and saying you had the nerve to leave your abusive relationship. That's not what we do in our culture. That's not what we do where we come from. How likely is a person to go? And you can say, damn the people, but how about if we educate the people? How about if we reduce the likelihood that you're going to be stigmatized for leaving an abusive relationship? How about that? And how do we do that? We run enough educational campaigns to educate people about how life is more valuable than conforming to expectations and conforming to unrealistic expectations. How about we encourage people, we educate people to know that your attitude is victimizing a victim? How about if we do that? I've heard some people say to me, well, Lillian, we don't know if your analogy works for cigarette smoking. The government can't pass a law and ban. No, it's not an exact direct comparison that I'm making, but I'm saying that just as the same way we did not say, and we do not say to you that, Oh, we've already told you that smoking is bad for you. We already told you that you can get lung cancer. And so, therefore, it's up to you to stop smoking. That's the end of the game. We cannot say to domestic violence, we've already told you that you're likely to die if you remain in this abusive relationship. That's the end of the game. We've done our bit and we are off. We haven't finished. We cannot be off. We have to be exploring opportunities. You're listening to me now? Okay, so tell me, when did you talk to someone in your office, in your church, in your school, around where you live, in your community? When did you talk to someone and say, we need to raise awareness for domestic violence? We don't know what it is. We don't know what to do. We're very scared, so we look the other way. When did you have an educational campaign, an educational event around where you're living? It's not those people's problem, it's everybody's problem. 1 in 4 women is a domestic violence victim. 1 in 7 men is a domestic violence victim. It's everybody's problem. So what have you done about it? Or your leaders educated? And you think just because you know and you say to the abuser, the victim, leave. You're saying to the victim, leave. What are you saying to the abuser? That's one of the things we say. You're saying, why doesn't she leave? How about, why does he abuse? Why is he an abuser? Why is she an abuser? Why can't she modify her behavior? Why can't he modify his behavior? You know your friend who's overweight. You know what you say to your friend? You need to go to the gym. You know your friend who has a drug problem. You know what you say to your friend? You need to get into rehab. I do concede that there's some people who are very well able to conceal their abusive behaviors. In fact, it's one of the things that amazes me, when a victim comes up and says, oh, this person is abusive, and people are like, oh, no, absolutely not. This person is an angel. Yeah. The victim thought so too. That's why the victim was in a relationship with the abuser. The victim thought the abuser was an angel too. So the fact that you don't believe this victim because this person is so perfect isn't really anything extraordinary. The victim also didn't believe the person was a bad person. That's why they're in the relationship with the person in the first place. So yes, some people can camouflage their behavior, but when you know what the red flags are, when you know what to look out for, even if someone doesn't tell you that they're being abused, you can tell that this person is being abused, or you can tell that this your person is an abuser. So what do you say to this person who's an abuser? Do you have these conversations about, this is not an appropriate behavior? This is not how you treat somebody that you're in a relation. This is not how you treat somebody, period. This is not how you treat a human being, because it's a human rights issue. But it even makes it very disturbing if this is somebody that you're in a relationship with, and you should be treating the person better. So what's going on? So our talk today really is about blaming the victim. Abuse is not a resultant behavior. So there is no place to say, you made me abuse you. We also do not help the cause when we say, you should have left. You should have left. That is not a public health response. That's a sentimental response. We just think you should up and go. But research doesn't support blaming the victim. Research doesn't support that sentimental response. Research makes us pump millions into smoking cessation programs, into policies, into education. Strong words with the tobacco industry to say you cannot continue to advertise directly like this, as frequently like this, as often as you like, because you're going to make the environment conducive for people to start smoking. And so we come at it from many angles. And it's the same way we need to come at domestic violence from many angles. It's not enough to say you're being abused, you're better than that, you should just up and go. No. There's social determinants of health that's affecting an individual's ability to make that decision to up and go. And so we have to make sure that we're addressing those social issues, issues of employment, issues of income, issues of housing, issues of education that's affecting a person's ability to up and go. And we also have to make sure that we're intervening at the community level with our faith communities, with our cultural organizations, with our families, with people in our neighborhoods, raising enough awareness, letting people know what domestic violence is, how it can present itself in many ways other than physical violence, and how you should hold abusers abusive so that the issue of leaving doesn't even arise because nobody is being abusive. So we want to make sure that we're educating people, we're letting the abuser know this is not acceptable behavior. And when we do all of this, we make it less likely for somebody to be comfortable to be abusing somebody. And we make it more likely for somebody who's being abused to be able to get up and walk out of an abusive relationship. I thank you for taking your time and listening. If you want to reach out to me, you can email me. Email me at lilagbeyegbe@gmail.com. You can also email me at lilagbeyegbe and say that's my name, lilagbeyegbe@gmail.com. You can reach me on Facebook, send me a direct message if you have any questions. I'll be glad to talk to you, glad to find out resources that I can get to you if you need some more education. I'm going to come back again to Early Lances. Most of my talk is going to be around the area of domestic violence, but I'm going to take a break every now and then and do something else, and who knows what I'm going to be talking about the next time I come to you. But thank you for listening. If you'd like to share this message, please do. We really need to get awareness out there. So I encourage you, if you listen to it, get somebody else to listen to it. Share the message if you'd like to reach out to me. I'll also love to hear from you and love to hear if you have questions about domestic violence. I'll be glad to talk about those questions. I'll see you some other time. Thank you very much for listening. Have a nice rest of your day.